Corey Lewandowski, welcome. It is so good to see you, my friend.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Trish.
And I'm really happy. You're now involved. You're on the team. You're one of the campaign officials here. And I don't know if it's coincidence or anything, but ever since you walked on the scene, Corey, all of a sudden the polls are going up, up, and away. What a turnaround this has been. Your reaction to just some of the numbers we're seeing, where the momentum now seems to be on Trump's side as opposed to Kamala's.
Well, Trish, look, what we saw and what we continue to see is a candidate on one side who's hiding in their basement, answered 18 minutes of questions. That's all they did over the last 45 days. And the other candidate, Donald Trump, is out bringing his message directly to the American people. You've seen him in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Michigan, Georgia, North Carolina. This guy is traveling across the country to bring a message of economic prosperity and freedom, safety and security, and a closed border to everybody. So why are the polls changing? Because for weeks, the only person who had a longer honeymoon was Tiananmen Tim, who went to China for his honeymoon, than Kamala Harris has had for the last 45 days.
I'm kind of surprised that the CNN interview didn't do a little more for her. It's almost like the more people see her, the more they get to know her, the more reticent they are. Do you expect that to continue? And thus so, would she maybe shy away from doing additional interviews, et cetera?
Well, look, if we extrapolate out the number of interviews she's done in the first 45 days, it means we get one more opportunity to talk to her before the election with 60 days to go, right?
Right.
Look, the mainstream media has been so in the tank for this administration and now the Harris campaign that we've seen on two different Sunday shows them attacking the Trump surrogates and advocating for Kamala Harris's policies against Senator Tom Cotton. It's amazing when these people are supposed to be journalists and asking questions and allowing the respondent to give their remarks. And instead, they're fact checking them. They're giving their own opinions on things, and they're wrong. So Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have no desire to bring their message to the American people. They want to make sure they're hiding. They want to make sure that this is a referendum, not on Donald Trump's policies, which are the best policies for America, but on the way he delivers that message. They think it's a winning narrative. It's not going to win. You can't repeat what happened in 2020, and we have to make sure that this is too big to rig.
Look, I mean, the reality is people are suffering. They are struggling. We have seen inflation absolutely through the roof over the last 3.5 years. We've got a compromised border, a very precarious international situation. Corey, when you add it all up to any average American, they know that, okay, you know what, maybe Trump wasn't everybody's cup of tea. Maybe he was a little rough around the edges. Maybe he sent some mean tweets. But at the end of the day, which actually is important, they could feed their families. They had belief in America's future, and that included the economic future of themselves. And I think that was really robbed from them, that was taken away. And so they're dealing with that reality. In other words, he doesn't have that hard a message to sell, if you ask me. I mean, you had me at the economy. So given that she's not saying anything, what do you think the methodology is behind that? Are they afraid? Do they know that as soon as people get to know her, it might be a Clinton thing all over again?
Yeah, they're clearly afraid. They want to play on this historic nature of her candidacy, the first black female to receive the major party endorsement. She didn't have to go through the primaries. She was coronated by the Democratic Party after we saw what many people already knew and Kamala Harris hid, which was Joe Biden's cognitive decline is so severe that he's not capable of running this country. And we know he's not running the country. And after that last presidential debate, the American people saw that too. So what is she doing? When she's asked a difficult question, she breaks into this laughter as a defense mechanism because she doesn't know what to say. And we've seen it time and time again. Even in the Dana Bash interview, when Dana Bash said, "Tell us about the call you received from Joe Biden," she broke into this laugh and said, "Well, I was cooking bacon for my grandnieces and I was making breakfast at the vice president's residence." I mean, of course we know that wasn't what was happening. We know that. But she had to just come up with something because she was ill-prepared. She was ill-prepared for the question of when did you start supporting fracking before you were opposed to fracking in Pennsylvania? When did you start supporting the no tax on tips before you were opposed to no tax on tips? And obviously the most egregious example is when did you start supporting a border wall when you said all it was Donald Trump's vanity project for the last 4 years and have done nothing but allowed 20 million illegals to come into the country and terrorize us and try to take us over from within. So Kamala Harris has a record that she now has to stand on, which is tied to the failures of the Biden administration, both economically and from a historical perspective when it comes to the disaster in the Middle East. I was at Arlington Cemetery last week when we had to honor those 13 dead American service members with their families who asked us to come there and share in their grief because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris haven't had the courtesy to say their names or call them or remember them from that Afghan withdrawal. So, there are a lot of things that Kamala Harris has to hide from, and it's going to be the last 4 years of her record because the American people don't want it.
Well, I mean, yeah, she's part of it, whether she likes it or not. She is indeed tethered to him and that record. So given your experience, I mean, you were there in 16, you ran the whole thing, you guys won, you were there as an advisor there in 2020, you're back on board now. Given your experience, what is it that he needs to do in the here and now? I mean, what is the ticket, right? How does he get to 270? Where do you see the most opportunity? Because again, you look at some of those states, like a Wisconsin, for example, like a Pennsylvania, where people are hurting, and the middle class has been absolutely massacred by these policies. It seems to me that these should be real opportunities and home runs. New poll data suggesting he really does have a leg to stand on there. What do you see getting you to 270?
Trish, the biggest thing that we're seeing is when you look historically of where we were in 2016 and 2020 at this race respectively. Hillary Clinton had about a 4-point lead at the time on a national scale, and Joe Biden had about a 7-point lead at this time in the race. Now, that's big picture, and if you look at Rasmussen today, Donald Trump has a 4-point national lead. But to your specific question as it relates to those individual states, let me take you back to where we were 4 years ago against Joe Biden in the state of Wisconsin today. Joe Biden maintained a 3.5-point lead over Donald Trump in the state of Wisconsin on this day 4 years ago. Today, the Real Clear Politics average has Donald Trump with a 3.5-point lead. That's a net swing of almost 7 points in the polls because they know what the devastation that has been caused by the Biden-Harris administration. You go to Pennsylvania, something very similar. Donald Trump was losing today in Pennsylvania 4 years ago to Joe Biden's campaign by about 2 points. Today, we're up 4 points in the state of Pennsylvania for a net swing of over 6 points. And that is because we are out articulating our message. We're out making sure we have deep policy matters, which I know sometimes people say they don't like the Trump rhetoric, but they should look at his policies, something that the Harris-Walz team still don't have on their website.
It's amazing to me. Corey, how do you run for president and not actually put your policies or some kind of plan on your website?
They don't want to. And what is Donald Trump going to do this week? He's going to give a detailed economic policy speech to the New York Economic Policy Forum. That's going to have 250 of the largest, wealthiest individuals who know what's going to happen under a Trump administration policy, because he's going to articulate and lay out what his plan is going to be for the next 4 years to provide economic freedom and economic security to everybody, regardless of race or religion, ethnicity, creed, color. It doesn't matter. When Donald Trump was in the White House, everybody was better off financially, and they have seen the draconian policies of this administration that have trickled all the way down to the lowest tiers, the lowest socioeconomic statuses, who are having a difficult time getting jobs, working multiple jobs. They can't put fuel in their car. And then what do we see? We're seeing illegals steal those jobs.
It's crazy. I mean, it really is. And inflation is it's such a negative thing for American families and for the middle class for sure. And I've talked about an hourglass economy because you get a lot on top, right? The donor class that Kamala Harris is so beholden to, and then you've got the people on the bottom where she's just giving out stuff, here you go, and some more freebies like Marie Antoinette there, and then it's that middle class that's getting so badly squeezed that finally I think is saying, wait a second, no, I need somebody to stand up for me. And this is why Donald Trump's economic policies resonated before and continue to resonate now. You mentioned the media earlier. I mean, look, I obviously have worked in mainstream media my entire career. I have chosen very specifically not to do so right now because I'm really just appalled and dismayed and discouraged, Corey, by the lack of autonomy, the lack of independence, and I guess the money at stake, because all of these big networks are really working for one team, and that's definitely not Team Trump.
Look, Trish, the lack of journalistic integrity is mind-numbing, even from a person who's jaded because of the coverage that we've received over the last 8 years. Not only is there not any integrity, but what are we seeing on the other side? Kamala Harris's team are the ones who are literally working at these big tech firms. And what do we see? Mark Zuckerberg came out and said, yeah, I guess I actually did suppress real information from conservatives, particularly about the laptop and the COVID issues and the responses. And that's why we're honored to get an endorsement from a guy like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's come to the Trump team, and then a Democrat former member of Congress who ran for president and took Kamala Harris down in her presidential debate, Tulsi Gabbard. They've come to the Trump team because they know what's at stake in this next election in November. And so, when you're a woman out there between really the ages of 25 and 40 years old, and you've got some children, and you're very concerned about what the government forced on you, mandated on you from the vaccine side, and what is going into your children's bodies, we're seeing more and more of those women come to the Trump campaign and supporting us because, look, the media wants to tell us that all women are against Donald Trump. It's so ridiculous, Trish, because you and I both know no gender, no ethnicity is monolithic. They vote on a number of things, and we're led to believe that just because Kamala Harris is a woman, women are going to support her. It wasn't true in 2016 when Hillary Clinton lost the women vote, and it's not going to be true in 2024 when Kamala does the same thing.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, it gets back in part to the abortion issue. I think Donald Trump has done his best to kind of take that off the table. After all, it's been kicked back to the states, and there it lies. But they're going to play that one up. They're also going to play up race, of course. We've seen this playbook before, and that's a tricky one to fight back against, especially when they're making stuff up about you as they have with him, and to the point where Snopes had to correct some stuff. So you guys have an uphill battle in that sense because you've got the media working in tandem with the other side, and they're going to paint a picture as they see fit to help them win the race. And so part of what you have to do, and look, it's the great thing about mediums like this, right? Media has changed. I'm here, we're streaming live every day on YouTube and a variety of other platforms, and people are coming because they want to hear a different message. And the mainstream media is going to give you just more and more of the same. It's almost hard to watch. Like I can't, I show people bits and clips here and there, and I'm like, I'm doing this so you don't have to. It's hard to watch. It's worth knowing the other side. But I think that its future, certainly from many different perspectives, Corey, is kind of done and over.
Well, look, Trish, what we know is 50% of the American electorate no longer gets their news from mainstream media, right? They're consuming their news on channels like this, across social media platforms. But more than that, the media is lazy. You know that. It's easy to call Donald Trump a racist, a misogynist, a bigot, whatever it is, without any proof to that. But the American people are smarter than that. They know that this guy's, I always say he's an equal opportunist. He treats everybody the same. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, black or white. He treats you exactly the same. And under the Harris-Biden administration, with Tim Walz associated with this, the only criteria for your success is either the color of your skin or the gender of who you are. Because Joe Biden said the only criteria to be a Supreme Court justice is you have to be a black woman. Whatever happened to the criteria of being the best person for the job? And I believe Donald Trump is the best person qualified to be the president, the 47th president of the United States, not based on his religion, not based on his ethnicity, not based on his gender, but based on his experience doing the job and what other world leaders will see in him as a leader and what he'll be able to achieve for this country. And nobody thinks that Kamala Harris is going to be tough enough to stand up to Vladimir Putin or Xi or any other world leader. She will cave to them like she has caved to everybody else.
Well, look, we have always been a meritocracy, and let's hope we stay a meritocracy. Thank you so much, Corey Lewandowski. We will talk to you again soon.